We took the trip last month, my sister said, and my heart sank. I had no idea they'd used my $5,000 and excluded me from a family vacation. The food court at Riverside Mall smelled like pretzels and teriyaki chicken. I was having lunch between meetings when I noticed my sister perusing a sunglasses booth near the fountain. We hadn't spoken in a few weeks, which wasn't surprising considering our hectic schedules, but I thought I'd say hello and perhaps have a coffee together. "Rachel," I yelled, slipping through the lunch mob. She turned, and her face paled. Actually, pale. Her grin was forced, extending over her teeth as if she had just been caught doing something wrong. "Oh hey," she said, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "What are you doing here?" "Same as everyone else, avoiding real food," I quipped, holding up my depressing desk salad. "Hey, so when's this family trip happening? I've been meaning to ask Mom about the final dates, but you know how she never answers her phone." Rachel's expression altered. The color drained more from her cheeks, and she glanced down at the sunglasses display as if it contained the mysteries of the cosmos. "About that," she began, then paused. Her hands were fidgeting with a pair of aviators. "You really don't know?" My stomach sank. Something about her tone made my skin tingle. "Know what?" Rachel breathed softly and placed down the sunglasses. "We went last month. The trip happened already. I thought I assumed someone told you." The mall noise faded to white static. People strolled past us, laughing and shopping, but I felt as if I were underwater. My mouth opened and then closed. Words wouldn't form correctly. "Last month," I said firmly. "You went last month." "It was complicated," Rachel said hurriedly, her words pouring out. "There was this issue with the cabin availability, and the dates got moved up suddenly, and everyone's schedules were just so hard to coordinate, and I paid $5,000 toward that trip." My voice sounded odd and distant. "I transferred it to Dad's account in April for the rental, the activities, food, everything we discussed at Easter dinner." Rachel's face wrinkled. "I know, I'm so sorry. Dad was supposed to talk to you about it. He said he would handle it." "Handle what exactly?" "Handle stealing my money and excluding me from a family vacation I helped pay for." "It wasn't like that," she protested, but her gaze did not contact mine. "The money thing. Dad said he'd pay you back. And you've just been so busy with work lately. We thought maybe you wouldn't even be able to make it anyway, so you decided for me." My hands trembled. I stuffed them into my pockets. "You all decided I wasn't important enough to include, but my money was just fine. That's not fair." "Fair?" The phrase came out sharply enough that a passing woman looked over uneasily. I dropped my voice. "You want to talk about fair? Did Kevin go on this trip?" Rachel's silence confirmed everything. Kevin, her spouse, who often grumbled about my employment, made nasty remarks about my single status at 34 and referred to me as a workaholic at every family event. "He was present." I stated, "That was not a question. He's my husband and I'm your sister. I've been your sister for 34 years, Rachel, since before you could walk. Since I taught you how to tie your shoes and helped you study for your SATs and threw you a baby shower when everyone said you were too young to start a family." My throat clenched. "But somehow Kevin, who's known you for 6 years, gets a spot on the vacation I funded and I get left behind." "Please don't make this any harder than it already is," Rachel said quietly. "Harder for who?" "For you." I took out my phone with trembling hands. "I need to go." "Wait, please. Can we talk about this? Maybe grab that coffee?" I took a good look at her. My younger sister, who used to follow me around like a shadow, sobbed when I left for college, and said I was her greatest friend. The sister who clearly thought so little of me that she took my money and went on vacation without saying anything. "No," I answered simply. "I don't think we can." I went away before she could react, my heels tapping on the tile floor in quick, furious beats. My hands were still shaking when I got to my car. I sat in the driver's seat, gazing at my phone screen, with wrath boiling in my chest like a pressure cooker. The parking lot surrounding me seemed unreal. An elderly couple strolled by, clutching shopping bags and giggling about something boring. A kid backed out of a place too hastily, nearly missing another vehicle. The globe continued to revolve while mine only leaned sideways. I opened my banking app with shaky fingers and looked at the transaction dated April 10th. There it was, $5,000 deposited to Michael Harris, my father's account. The note line said, "Family Vacation Fund, can't wait." I'd included a smiling face emoji because I was actually delighted. Looking at that silly emoji made my stomach flip. How long did they know? That question kept buzzing in my mind. The vacation was last month, thus they had been preparing this exclusion for weeks, if not longer. Every family text message, every casual phone contact in which no mention of the trip was made, was a lie. They had looked me in the eye several times throughout those weeks and said nothing. I checked my text messages and went back through the family discussion. Mom had wrote 7 weeks earlier, "Can't wait for our family time together." I replied with hearts and delight. 4 weeks ago, Dad addressed our forthcoming excursion in a group chat. I answered, asking whether we needed to coordinate anything. He'd stated, "All taken care of, sweetheart, all taken care of." He was not mistaken. They had taken care of excluding me while retaining my money. The first call was to my mother. She responded on the third ring, her voice bright and happy. "Sweetheart, how are you?" "I just ran into Chloe at the mall," I explained, my voice strangely calm. "She told me you all went on the family trip last month. The one I contributed $5,000 to." The stillness was so extended that I feared the call had been dropped. "Honey," Mom eventually began, her tone moving to that delicate, placating sound she used when she realized she'd made a mistake. "We were going to tell you. Your father was supposed to call you about the date change. The date change that coincidentally happened without me. You're always so busy with work. We thought..." "Stop." I closed my eyes and pressed my hand on my forehead. "Please stop lying to me. If you didn't want me there, you could have just said so. Instead, you took my money and lied about it for weeks." "We didn't lie," Mom insisted. The timing got complicated." "Was there even a date change, or was this the plan all along?" Another breath. This told me everything. "I want my money back," I said. "All of it by the end of the week." "Well, that might be difficult. The money's already been spent on..." "I don't care what it was spent on. You took $5,000 from me under false pretenses. That's theft, Mom. I'm giving you until Friday to return it, or I'm taking legal action." "You wouldn't do that," she said. But her voice trembled. "We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other." "Friday, Mom." I hung up before she could reply. My heart hammered so strongly that I felt dizzy. Take 3 deep breaths. 4. 5. The next call was to my father. Voicemail. Of course. "Dad, it's me. I know about the trip. I know you all went without me after taking my money. I want it back by Friday, or I'm getting lawyers involved. Your choice." My finger was hovering above the next touch. Rachel again? No. I had spoken everything I needed to say to her. But there was another person who needed to hear from me. Kevin answered the first call, his voice arrogant as usual. Well, heard you ran into Rachel today. You knew?" "I said you knew the whole time." "Knew what?" "That your family finally got tired of working around your ridiculous schedule, that they decided to actually have fun without waiting for you to pencil them in between meetings?" He chuckled, and it made my blood boil. "Come on, you had to know this was coming eventually. I paid for that vacation, and they used your money well. The cabin was beautiful. Your parents say thanks, by the way." Something inside of me cracked. Not in a spectacular or explosive fashion. It was more like a frayed cord that eventually gave way after years of use, quiet, decisive and final. "I'm going to ruin you," I replied quietly. Kevin laughed harder this time. "What are you going to do? Sue your own family? Good luck with that. You look like a greedy, bitter spinster who can't handle being left out of one trip." "We'll see," I said and hung up. My hand stopped shaking. The wrath was still blazing in my chest, but it had become cold and concentrated. I had spent my whole adult life pursuing a profession in financial advising. I understood just how to manage financial conflicts. I knew just who to contact. Dylan Turner answered his office phone on the second ring. Max had been my attorney for years, guiding me through everything from contract negotiations to that disaster with my prior landlord. He was clever, vicious when needed, and owed me a favor. "Tell me you're calling with good news," he remarked in welcome. "I need your help with something," I told you. "Family matter, financial theft, and I need it handled quickly and thoroughly." "I'm listening." I described everything. Vacation planning, money transfers, covert trips, and a confrontation in the mall. Max listened without interrupting, and I could almost hear him taking notes. "Do you have any documentation of the transfer?" he eventually inquired. "Bank statements, text messages about the trip planning, emails, everything." "And they're refusing to return the funds?" "Haven't heard back from my dad yet, but my mom basically said they spent it and getting it back would be difficult." "That's not how this works," Max responded. And I could detect a grin in his voice. He became predatory when he spotted a case he might win. They accepted money for a specific purpose, failed to fulfill that purpose, and are now refusing to return the funds. That's textbook fraud, possibly theft by deception, depending on how we frame it. How fast can you move on this? I can have a demand letter drafted and sent by tomorrow morning. If they don't respond appropriately within the time frame we give them, we file a civil suit. Given the dollar amount, we could also potentially involve law enforcement, though that gets messier with family. I want the letter sent tomorrow, I explained. Give them 3 business days to respond. If they don't pay back every cent with interest for the time they've had it, we file immediately. You're sure about this? Once we start down this road, there's no going back. Your family's going to be furious. They should have thought about that before they stole from me and lied about it. All right, Max said. I'll get started. Send me all the documentation you have and we'll make this airtight. After hanging up with Max, I remained in my car for a while, watching people come and go from the mall. Families carrying shopping bags, teens laughing, couples holding hands, ordinary folks going about their daily lives, not suffering with betrayal by those who were meant to love them the most. My phone vibrated. A text from Rachel. Please don't do anything rash. We can work this out. Family is more important than money. I wrote back with steadier fingers. You're right. Family should be more important than money. You should have remembered that before you took mine and left me behind. Another buzz. This is from Mom. I talked to your father. We can give you back half now and the rest over the next few months. Please be reasonable about this. Reasonable. They expected me to be fair over their theft. Full amount by Friday or my attorney proceeds with legal action. I said, this is non-negotiable. My phone began ringing instantly. Mom called back. I refused it. It rang again. Rachel this time. Declined. Dad declined. Kevin truly made me chuckle. Definitely declined. 3 voicemails arrived in rapid succession. I removed them without listening. That evening, I submitted all of my documents to Max. Bank accounts reflect a $5,000 transfer in April. Text messages from the family group chat about vacation arrangements, including days I had noted as open on my calendar. Dad sent me emails confirming receipt of my money and offering to handle all the preparations. Screenshots of our talk about activities and food planning. Everything conveyed a clear picture, a family trip planned jointly, funded for in part by me, but carried out without me while they retained my money. Max emailed back within an hour. This is even better than I thought. Their own messages establish intent and agreement. If they fight this, they'll lose badly. Letter goes out at 10 a.m. tomorrow. That night I prepared dinner in my quiet apartment. Pasta with marinara, simple yet cozy. My phone was vibrating with texts, but I switched off alerts from my family members. Whatever they had to say could wait until they were ready to have an open discussion, which was clearly not going to happen tonight. Around 10 o'clock my doorbell rang. I opened my phone's camera app and saw Rachel standing there, looking sad, clutching what looked to be a bottle of wine. I didn't respond. She rang again and knocked. Please, I know you're home. Your car is here. I just want to talk. Through the webcam, I saw her stand there for 5 minutes, intermittently knocking, before departing. Her shoulders dropped as she went back to her car, and I felt a glimmer of regret. Then I recognized her face from the mall. She tried to rationalize excluding me, and she let her husband ridicule me on the phone. The guilt subsided. The demand letter came at my parents' residence by certified mail the next morning at 11:30 a.m. I know because I received a notice from the tracking application. Max had copied me on the letter, and it was beautiful. Professional, cold and completely damning. It presented the facts simply. Money was transferred for a specified reason. The purpose was not fulfilled. The beneficiary failed to refund money. Legal action will be taken if payment is not received within 3 business days. There's no emotional language. There are no accusations. Simply clean legal professionals who made it quite evident that they had made a mistake. My phone burst. 15 missed calls before noon. Text messages ranged from appealing to furious to confused. Dad left a message that began, "What the heck do you think you're doing?" and ended, "Call me immediately." Kevin didn't respond, which was odd. Rachel wrote a novel-length text about how upset she was that I'd engage attorneys, how she never imagined I'd prioritize money before family, and how disappointed she was in me. I replied once to the family group chat. You had numerous opportunities to do the right thing. You chose not to. And this is the result of that decision. I then silenced the chat. Work became my shelter. I immersed myself into a new customer proposal. Went over financial estimates till my eyes crossed, and remained late at work 3 nights in a row. On Thursday morning, my coworker Olivia spotted and approached me at the coffee machine. "Okay, what's going on?" "You've got that look," she replied, pouring herself a cup of the horrible break-room coffee that we all pretended to drink. "What look?" "The I'm about to destroy someone's life and I have the spreadsheets to prove it." "Look, I've seen it before. Usually right before you eviscerate someone's terrible business plan in a meeting." Regardless of everything, I grinned. "Family drama. Don't want to bore you with it." "Family drama that requires your legal murder face." Now I'm intrigued. I gave her a shortened version. Olivia's eyes widened with each revelation until she was shaking her head in astonishment. "They took $5,000 from you and went without you. Are they insane? Apparently they thought I'd just let it go. Do they not know you at all?" Olivia cracked a joke. "I've watched you spend 6 hours tracking down a $4 accounting error because the principle of it bothered you. Did they really think you'd shrug off $5,000 and a massive betrayal? Seems that way. Well, I hope you crush them," she said gleefully. "Family or not. That's messed up. You want to grab dinner tonight? You look like you could use a friend." I agreed, happy for the diversion. We proceeded to a Thai restaurant downtown, where Olivia amused me with anecdotes about her disastrous dating experiences. It was nice to laugh and think about something other than my family's treachery for a few of hours. The deadline arrived on Friday morning. I'd received nothing from my family but more urgent texts, which I continued to ignore. At 9:30 a.m., Max phoned. "They haven't contacted my office," he said. "Want me to file?" I thought about it for precisely 3 seconds. Regarding Rachel's phony grin at the mall. Regarding Mom's placating falsehoods. About Kevin's sarcastic tone. Regarding Dad's quiet through it all. "File it," I said. "Done. You'll have the case number by this afternoon. Fair warning, things are about to get very uncomfortable." "They already are, might as well make them count." The lawsuit was entered into the county's record system by midday. Civil action seeking $5,000 in return, plus interest, court expenses, and attorney fees. Max had sued all 3 of them, Mom, Dad and Rachel, jointly and severally, which meant that any or all of them might be held accountable for the whole sum plus damages. My phone rang non-stop for the remainder of the day. I disregarded it all. At 5:47 p.m., another voice joined the chorus. "Aunt Helen is my mother's sister. She left a message full of disappointment about how I was pulling the family apart over money, how my mother was in tears, and how everyone was stunned that I could be so heartless." I stored the message not to listen to again, but to show the level of pressure they were putting. Max said it could be beneficial later. That evening I received an SMS from an unknown number. It took me a while to recognize it was from my niece Sophia, Rachel's 12-year-old daughter. She was old enough to have her own phone, and evidently old enough to be hired as a courier. "Aunt Lisa is really upset. Grandma too, can you please drop this? It's just money." I looked at the message for a long time. They had gotten a teenager interested. They were exploiting a child to attempt to guilt-trip me into giving up. I didn't respond. Max contacted the following Monday to provide an update. "They've retained counsel. Jackson Weaver, local guy, does a lot of family law and estate stuff. He's already reaching out about settlement." "What are they offering?" "Full repayment of the principal, no interest, no costs. They want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a release waiving any future claims." "Absolutely not," I said quickly. "They pay everything, including your fees and court costs." "No NDA. They apologize in writing and I want confirmation that they understand what they did was wrong." "The apology thing isn't standard." "I don't care. That's my condition. They can accept it or face me in court." "You're really not messing around with this, would you? If your family did this to you." "Fair point," Max said. "I'll communicate your terms." Counteroffers began to come in. They pay interest, but not attorney's expenses. They paid everything but requested the NDA. They do everything, but the written apology was very insulting. I declined each one. Every time Max would call and run the latest offer by me. And every time I would say no. My terms were my own. Take or leave it. During this time I learned something interesting about standing your ground. People unintentionally show themselves. Aunt Helen contacted me personally one evening, her voice sugary sweet, taking a different approach than her previous guilt trip message. "Honey, I understand you're hurt," she told you. "But your mother is beside herself. She's not sleeping, barely eating. Is the money really worth destroying her health?" "Is the money worth stealing?" I responded. "Because that's what they did. They stole from me." That's such an ugly word, Helen replied, her tone changing significantly. They made an error in their judgment. Humans make errors. Mistakes happen by accident. This was deliberate. They organized a trip, grabbed my money, left without me, and lied for weeks. That is not an error. It is a decision. You always were so black and white about things, she told me. And now the pleasure had vanished, leaving her hard and incapable of forgiving. Your mother warned me you'd be difficult about this. Good, I said. I hope she warned you correctly, because I'm not backing down. Helen hung up on me. I added her name to my mental list of folks who seemed to believe I should simply accept being taken from and ostracized because I was family. The Whisper campaign began shortly after that. I learned from common friends that different family members were disseminating their versions of events. I was greedy, preoccupied with money, held grudges for nothing, and ripped the family apart with my selfishness. Someone even indicated that I hadn't wanted to go on the trip and was using it as an excuse to cause trouble. Each falsehood strengthened my determination. We were 4 weeks into our legal struggle when something interesting happened. Olivia entered my office one afternoon with an unusual smile on her face. So, I have weird news, she remarked, slamming the door behind her. Remember my boyfriend Greg? The one I'm always complaining about. The one who's emotionally unavailable but makes good pancakes? That's the one. Anyway, he's an accountant and he was telling me about this new client his firm just took on. Small business owner consulting company having some cash flow issues. She hesitated significantly. The business owner's name is Tyler Sutton. My head snapped up. Tyler is my brother-in-law. Same last name, industry, and approximate location. So I performed some little snooping on LinkedIn, and indeed, it was the same person. Tyler's business is in peril, according to Greg, who may have told me a little too much after 2 beers. Like major difficulty. Has not paid himself a wage in 4 months, which is a problem. I slumped back in my chair, trying to comprehend this knowledge. Tyler teased me over the phone for being a workaholic. Tyler, who appeared so superior during family events. Tyler, who chuckled at the idea of utilizing my money for their vacation. How bad are we talking? Olivia dropped her voice. Greg said the business has maybe 4 months before it's underwater completely. He's trying to restructure debt, but it's not looking good. Something about a large client backing out and taking their ongoing money with them. Huh? I said neutrally, although my mind was already processing the ramifications. Olivia said, "Are you thinking something evil?" I can see it on your face. I'm thinking that Tyler Sutton's struggling business consulting company might benefit from the expertise of someone who specializes in financial turnarounds and business restructuring. I accessed my professional network on my computer, for example, the senior financial analyst at Williams Supply Solutions, who is connected to half of the tri-state area's mid-sized enterprises. You're going to help him? Olivia sounded skeptical. Oh no, I said, smiling slightly. I'm going to make sure every potential client he approaches knows exactly what kind of person they'd be working with. I'm going to ensure that every business owner in our network understands that Tyler Sutton is the type of man who thinks stealing from family is funny, that he's financially desperate, that he's exactly the kind of person you don't want having access to your company's financial information. That's diabolical. That's strategic, I said. I'm not going to lie about him. I'm just going to make sure the truth is very well known in all the right circles. I began that evening by casually informing a client over dinner about my continuing family legal predicament. Make sure to mention Tyler and his firm. A statement made at a networking event regarding the necessity of integrity in consulting partnerships, followed by a personal tale about my brother-in-law. I issued a courteous caution to a company owner acquaintance who was seeking for financial consulting services. Nothing actionable, nothing defamatory, simply information given casually, spreading like ripples across my professional network. Max called 2 days later, seeming amused. So, their attorney just contacted me in a panic. Apparently Tyler's business is losing potential clients at an alarming rate, and he's convinced you're behind it. How would I be behind his business failures? I'm not responsible for his reputation or his business management skills. That's essentially what I told their lawyer in more professional terms. But here's the interesting part. They want to settle all your terms. Full payment, attorney fees, court costs, and a written apology from each of them. My heart rate increased. What changed? Tyler's freaking out. He thinks you're going to destroy his business, and honestly, from what their attorney said, it sounds like you're doing exactly that. They want this over before you do more damage. I want to see the apologies before I agree to anything, I told them. And they need to be genuine, not some template their lawyer wrote. The apologies come by email 3 days later. 3 distinct letters, one from each. Dad was short and rough. I'm sorry for not communicating with you about the trip date change, and for not returning your money immediately when you asked. This got out of hand, and I should have handled it better. Mom's was lengthier and more emotional, with explanations of how they assumed I wouldn't mind, how they got caught up in the preparation, and how they never intended to upset me. It felt more like rationalization than apology, although it did include the words, "I'm sorry," as well as an acknowledgement that taking my money and failing to provide what was promised was wrong. Rachel's made me pause. It was 2 pages long, handwritten and scanned. The writing seemed disorganized, as if she had been sobbing while composing it. She apologized for lying to me in the mall, failing to stand up for me, allowing Kevin to influence her family decisions, and taking me for granted. She wrote about how she had always admired me, how jealousy had poisoned their relationship, and how she felt embarrassed of what they had done. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she wrote in the conclusion. "I know I destroyed something that might not ever be fixed. But I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. You deserve so much better from all of us, but especially from me." I read the letter 3 times while sitting at my kitchen table with a glass of wine. Part of me was still enraged, part of me was fatigued, and a little part of me, hidden under the rage and betrayal, felt sad. We were saddened by what we had and had lost. But I was not prepared to forgive. Perhaps I never would be. "The apologies are acceptable," I told Max. "Draw up the settlement agreement." The money was deposited into my account on Tuesday morning. $5,000 principal, $160 in accumulated interest, and $7,200 in attorney and court expenses. Watching the deposit arrive in my account seemed strange. I had officially, legally, and utterly won, but it did not feel the way I had imagined. Max contacted to check that I had gotten everything. "So, that's done. You planning to have any contact with them going forward?" "I honestly don't know. I admit that part of me wants to cut them off totally, but they are still my family, and that is tricky." "It always is," he said sympathetically. "For what it's worth, I think you handled this exactly right. They needed to face real consequences, and you made sure they did. Whether you eventually reconcile or not, at least you stood up for yourself." After we hung up, I sat with my phone in my palm, glancing at the family group chat that I had muted weeks before. There were 247 unread messages. I skimmed through them without reading properly. There was a lot of wrath, begging, and efforts to manipulate. Some communications from extended family members expressing their viewpoints. Rachel's note was at the bottom, sent only an hour ago. "I know you probably won't read this, and I don't blame you, but I wanted you to know that Kevin and I are in marriage counseling. A lot of stuff came out during all of this, and I'm starting to see how toxic some of our dynamics have been. I'm working on it. Not for you, but for me and the kids. I hope someday we can talk again, but I understand if that never happens. You were right about everything." I gazed at the message for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in several weeks. I responded, "I'm glad you're getting help. That takes courage. I'm not ready for a relationship right now, but I hope the counseling helps you." Her reaction was instantaneous, like if she had been waiting by her phone. "Thank you. That means more than you know." I silenced the chat again, but something seemed different this time. Less like slamming a door. More like softly closing it, with the potential that it will open again someday. Work proceeded. Life continued. I attended Olivia's birthday party and laughed with coworkers during outrageous karaoke. I took a long weekend and traveled up to the mountains where I spent 3 days hiking without thinking about family turmoil. I began therapy because although winning my legal struggle, I was still dealing with a lot of mixed thoughts about everything. Kevin's business failed 2 months after the settlement. Olivia's boyfriend claims it wasn't simply due of reputational damage, but that didn't help. The financial issues had been mounting for a long, and losing those potential clients further expedited the process. Kevin accepted a position with a larger consulting firm, rather than starting his own business. I felt neither happy nor sorry about it. It was only information. 4 months after everything was completed, I received a card in the mail. Inside was a child's sketch of 2 stick figures holding hands, with the words, "I miss you, Aunt," scrawled in crayon at the top. Sophia, Rachel's daughter, had sketched it on the back using Rachel's handwriting. "No pressure, just wanted you to know you're thought of." I posted the drawing on my refrigerator. 6 months later, Sophia received her birthday invitation. A children's party at a nearby bouncy house facility. The invitation was specifically targeted to me. No +1, no assumptions. "Would love to have you there, but no hard feelings if you're not ready. Rachel, I sent an RSVP. Yes. The gathering was weird. Mom sobbed when she saw me and attempted to hug me, but I stood rigid and uncomfortable. Dad shook my hand politely, as if we were business acquaintances. Kevin remained on the opposite side of the party the entire time, which was okay with me. But Sophia lighted up when she spotted me, racing up for an embrace that was sincere and straightforward in the manner that only a 12-year-old's adoration can be. Rachel and I didn't say much, but when the kids were devouring cake, she walked over to where I was standing by the punch bowl. "Thank you for coming," she said gently. "It means a lot to Sophia especially. But to me too. She's a good kid," I explained. "This isn't her fault, and she shouldn't be punished because the adults in her life messed up." "Fair," Rachel said. She paused and continued. "I really am in therapy, it's helping. I'm learning a lot about boundaries and people-pleasing and letting other people's opinions influence me too much. It's hard work, but I'm trying." "Good," I said simply. "I hope it helps." We stood silently for a moment, watching the children play. It was not pleasant, but it was not aggressive either. It was just neutral, a beginning point, perhaps for something different than what we had previously. I did not remain long after the cake was served. I said my goodbyes to Sophia, nodded to my parents, and went without much ceremony. But, when I drove home, I saw something had changed. The wrath that had propelled me throughout the legal struggle, burning hot and concentrated for months, had now subsided to a reasonable level. I had stood up for myself. I had created a line and enforced it. I had sought responsibility and received it. I wasn't sure whether my family and I would ever have a regular connection again. Maybe we'd form a new configuration that acknowledged what had transpired while respecting the constraints I'd set. Perhaps we wouldn't. And I'd have to grieve and move on nonetheless. Regardless, I'd learnt something useful. My worth was not negotiable. My dignity was unquestionable, and the people in my life, whether family or not, had to treat me with the respect I deserved, or they would have no place in my life at all. That mall meeting, as painful as it was in the moment, provided me with clarity. It had shown where I stood in my family's priorities, forcing me to choose what I was ready to accept. I refused to accept treachery, even from those who were meant to love me the most. A year after the mall incident, I got a text from Rachel on a random Tuesday afternoon. "There's no special event, birthday, or holiday. Just remember how we used to get coffee at that place on 5th Street before you drove me to my college classes. I was thinking about that today. Those were good times." I considered that message for a time before answering. They were. The vanilla lattes were terrible, but the company was good. "They were really terrible," she acknowledged. "I'm free Saturday morning if you want to grab coffee somewhere with better lattes. No pressure." I pondered about it for precisely 10 seconds before responding. "Saturday works. 10 a.m. It's a date, and I'm buying." "You're definitely buying," I confirmed. Saturday morning came, dreary and drizzly. Typical autumnal weather. I nearly canceled 3 times, my hand hanging over my phone and fear rising in my gut. But I had promised to go, and I followed through. Rachel was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table with 2 lattes and a look of genuine worry on her face. When she spotted me, she stood and appeared hesitant whether to hug me or not, so she did this uncomfortable half-wave instead. "Hi," she said. "I got you a vanilla latte, but I can get something else if you want." "This is fine," I responded, sitting across from her. We spoke for 2 hours. Not about the lawsuit or treachery. Not at first. We spoke about work, her kids, the book she was reading, and my recent unsuccessful effort to plant tomatoes on my apartment balcony. Small discussion, safe talk, the type of conversation you have while you're trying to figure out if there's anything left to save. As we were about to depart, Rachel finally brought up the issue we had been avoiding. "I know I've apologized in writing, but I need to say it in person," she continued, her hands wrapped around her empty coffee cup. "What we did to you was unforgivable. I've been working through it in therapy, trying to understand why I let it happen, why I didn't stand up for you. There's no excuse that makes it okay. I just wanted you to hear me say that out loud, looking at you, not hiding behind a letter." "Okay," I responded. Because what else was there to say? "I don't expect things to go back to how they were," she said. "I know that's probably impossible, but I hope maybe we can figure out something new, something better, even built on honesty this time instead of assumptions and taking each other for granted." "Maybe," I responded slowly. "But it's going to take time, Rachel. A lot of time. Trust isn't something you can just rebuild overnight." "I know. I'm willing to put in that time if you are." I looked at my younger sister. Really stared at her. She had lost weight,